This next topic needs no introduction. Let's jump right in. Welcome to the Relationship Theory, everyone. I'm a healer who likes to think out loud. Here we take thoughts in, we break them down, we build them up, and we play them out. Narcissism, everyone. Let's get started, shall we? So let me preface this by saying, you are the narcissist. Yes, you watching this. This isn't as bad as it seems. The very first thing that the world, literally every single person in the world, needs to know is that you cannot expel something unless you know that it's within yourself first. You can't get rid of it. You never can. You are never able to point at any one thing outside of you and say that it is what it is because of what it consists of. You cannot do that. The world doesn't work that way. It's the way that you see it that you're even calling something what it is in the first place. So I want you to take any idea that you have about narcissism, any research that you've done, and any person that comes to mind when you consider them to be a narcissist, and I want you to understand that that is who you are first. Take that and understand that you are the narcissist that you are thinking of and that you talk about and that you're obsessed with. Good? Okay, now we can move on. I want you to consider narcissism to be a starving child. A starving child. I want you to consider narcissism to be a starving child, a child that needs to eat, that is hungry, and there is no way. As it is, just as in its, what's the word I'm trying to use? In the state that you find that person, they are starving and they need something. I want you to picture narcissism to be the darkness to which needs light on it. And because we're talking about something that actively affects people daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly, I want you to consider narcissism to be something that has an endeavor to seek out light in order to fill itself with light. I want you to think of narcissism that way, because this is exactly what is happening. Narcissism isn't necessarily what it is because you see it outside of yourself. What someone is trying to do is obtain what they do not believe is within themselves first. But how do you think someone came to believe that what they need is outside of themselves? Because they've been working so hard at calling out what they think exists outside of themselves in the first place. This isn't anyone's fault. You grew up having to eat because your parents fed you and not you yourselves. And even after you were able to feed yourself, that conversation wasn't even ever had. They never told you that you could feed yourself. You just figured out that you can. They never told you that you could walk. You just figured out that you can. And being able to isn't necessarily the same as communicating with somebody else about what you have the ability to do. They're both not the same things. Because, like I said earlier, in order to know what something is, you need to know what it is inside of yourself. If you're trying to get it out, you need to know that it's in you first. Your perspective of your abilities changes everything about the way that you communicate with someone else and the way that you interact with yourself according to what you're dealing with, your abilities. The way you have your relationship with yourself, that's the way you're going to bring yourself to someone else. It's your perspective. But your perspective needs discussion too. Much like anything else, you need to talk about it. People typically think that therapy is something that is needed to talk about really, really harsh issues and traumatizing events in your life that you just cannot seem to get over. But if you ever asked me, therapy isn't needed for trauma. Therapy is what you need because you don't have good friends. If you had one good friend, you wouldn't need therapy. And I don't mean a good friend to call you out on your madness, because that's just a very small part of what it means to have a relationship with someone that cares about you and that you care about. But what care is to each individual must be discussed. I have this suspicion that people think that there is so little to go around that they spend their entire life trying to save the little that they think exists in the first place, which actually causes the scarcity. Pretending that there's not enough to go around makes you act like there's not enough to go around. And then when you don't talk about the fact that there's not enough to go around, you're going to produce the event that you're worried about. You're going to create what you refuse to talk about. The things that you do not describe and you refuse to articulate stay inside of you. They never come out if you do not know how to define the world that you live in. And if you asked me, that would be narcissism. Your refusal to define your world. So start learning to understand what's happening around you. And I don't just mean realizing where everything went wrong in your life, because that's another trap that people fall into when it comes to narcissism, therapy, and trauma, because those are the three people typically run into when they start to really cogitate about the things in their life. They lean to those three, especially when it comes to understanding their world. They think about what and who has betrayed them. You lied to me. That's the way they'll react. You were never on my side. It's their fear of wanting to be alone. That's what they're really reacting to when they find out that the world that they lived in no longer exists. And when they continue to live in the world, they find out that, yeah, this is true. I don't live in the world that I thought I did. And they spend their entire lives being upset about the fact that they live in a world that doesn't play out the way that they understand it. And more so, the endeavor really should be to just understand how you used to define your world and then readjust your definition to who you are today. Your lack of an ability to define your world hides yourself from the truth of your own experience and history. And if you deny yourself the ability to validate where you came from, isn't that much like living like a ghost? So I'd want to leave you with that question. That'll be the episode for narcissism. It needs no introduction and it needs no conclusion either. Define your world.